Today, we're back at Spațiu Creativ, Malta's leading centre for creative arts, theatre and film. Here, I'll meet Jacqueline Backman, NetRefer's Chief Performance Officer, where we'll learn more about Jackie and her role at NetRefer.
So, Jackie, I think the viewers would be interested to find out a bit more about you and your background. I think I'm detecting a bit of a North American accent in there somewhere.
Yes, that's very sharp.
You?
Actually, it's a Canadian accent.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Canadian accent. I was born and raised in Canada. Okay. Although, I have Maltese parents. Okay. Like, actually, what I tell people usually is that I come from a mixed marriage, because my mother was from Valletta and my father was from Sliema.
About as mixed as it gets, I dare say, yeah. Okay, very interesting. So you have a Maltese Canadian background.
My sad joke.
I liked it.
I like it too. And if you understand their age, at that time it would have been considered quite mixed. Yeah, it was a big deal back then. So anyways. Sorry about that.
What kind of work did you used to do prior to coming on board with NetRefer? What was your background?
That's a very big question. So let me think how I can condense this. So essentially, for the last the 20, 25 years almost that preceded my time with NetRefer, I actually focused on emotional intelligence, emotional EQ, human behavior, and I did a lot of work around organizational leadership. So I used to specialize within organizational leadership. And that involves not only just understanding how people perform, but also understanding how businesses perform, how organizations perform, and what are the conditions by which are required for them to perform well, and how that human component fits in it. So everything from strategy to structure to workflows, and then how the people piece fits in, but not so much as from an HR perspective, but more from a requirements performance perspective. But I've done a lot of different things in my career. I used to teach, like I said, I used to do organizational leadership consulting, which was probably the big piece of my business, but I used to do certification programs. I've done, oh my gosh, I used to have an institute, it was called ESA, which was an emotional intelligence soft skills training academy, is what I used to do. So we used to do public programs for that. So, but always around the program, the corporate, but also the private sector. You know, I really used to enjoy, going to businesses and selling them your wares, B2B, is one thing, but when you can sell your wares to the B2C and really hear the voice of the people, it's particularly challenging. So it's all within the same spectrum, but essentially that's my background.
So it sounds like you've worked with a wide range of clients in different sort of scales of business on this consultation basis.
Absolutely. So from an organizational leadership perspective, I've worked with everybody from accounting to scientists. I've worked with pharmaceuticals to banking institutions. Just a really vast spectrum. Because when the focus is the leadership, the organizational leadership, it's not just about giving or helping people to understand what's required from a leadership perspective in so much as it relates to human beings, but also what organizations need from their leaderships, from their leaders, what organizations require from their leaders. So, industry is secondary. I mean, I think this is applicable for any C-level role. It's one thing to have an understanding or an expertise in the industry that you're working in, but it's not necessarily a requirement. It's not uncommon for top-level executives to come from completely different areas, because at a C-level, you're brought into the business to solve particular problems and to be able to accomplish specific objectives and milestones. So, yeah, a wide range of
and hopefully that wide range of experience in your background all can sort of come together and inform your work now.
And for me, it was important because I'm very challenge-oriented. I'm very, I like to find solutions. I just really like to find solutions, and if things are a status quo. So I was never going to be a good match for an organization that was just kind of, we're good. Let's just keep going. This is working. That's not really my match. My match is for very ambitious organizations and very ambitious CEOs. And of course, that would be why Raphael and I were a very good match, core values and otherwise. So good.
Great.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about your job title.
Okay.
CPO. I mean, I was thinking about these initials. Like, could be Chief Procurement Officer, Chief Probation Officer, maybe something you're not telling us about your past there. What does CPO stand for? Set me straight here.
Well, in our context, it stands for Chief Performance Officer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Chief Performance Officer.
Okay. So tell me more about that role.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
What does
So
that
of course, again, this is another brainchild of our CEO, our group CEO, Raphael Arnold, and that being that he has a performance marketing company, and he wanted a role that the focus said what we do.
Okay.
And everything that comes out of it, it's pretty tricky because, for example, I am Chief Performance Officer. So anything related to performance falls under me, which essentially is an organization, which is the entire organization. It's a very unique role. It does exist, but within our industry, I think even in Europe, I haven't heard of it too much. Can I tell you more about it, or how it works within the business? Because
it's kind of an innovative sort of evolution of the C structure.
Personally, I think it's brilliant. I mean, at the beginning, when I first came in and I took the role, I was impartial. I haven't been one for titles or fell in love with my title or anything like that. But I really love how it does capture exactly what I need to be doing. And with our group CEO, Raphael, he is a visionary. So I've said this before and I'll say it, and he's actually quite brilliant. And I say that as a person that's worked with many business owners and many CEOs in my past. And not all of them are visionary. And when you have a visionary CEO, it's really important that you have somebody, I believe, that you have somebody that is working with you as an integrator, that is going to take your vision and translate that into the business at the highest of levels. So at the highest levels, meaning highest and having the most holistic overview. Because sometimes people look at hierarchy. I'm not referring to that. So in a chief role, you have to have a holistic perspective. And as the Chief Performance Officer, I am consistently, overseeing the business operation from that seat to ensure that the business is moving towards the CEO's vision.
Okay, so in a sense, then you're like a medium between Raphael's corporate vision and putting those strategies into practice, implementing them with individual teams?
Yes, absolutely. And somewhat of a translator, an integrator, making sure, because if you've ever talked to somebody who has great vision and you're doing anything, a lot of times that vision is really, it's large. It's always going to be large when it comes to, and it's quite large and quite vast. And it's really important that that's translated down into where the business is, what the business can do, and making sure that we, through my team, I don't do it on my own, but through that I have the team of people. And Raphael and I also, we work very, very closely. So really closely. As a matter of fact, our goal is a unified organization, which starts with unified leadership, which continues as unified executive heads and so on and so forth. So Raphael and I really work in tandem, day in, day out. Him, reminding, always being himself and talking about the vision, and me making sure that how that can be translated, when it can be translated, when the right timing is, and so on and so forth. So.
And is there a sort of a measurement aspect then to your role? When you say performance, are you like observing teams according to criteria, how they're measuring up against the planned implementations?
Exactly. So that's the key right there. So you have to have a clearly defined vision, which we've spoken about. You have to know what we're doing, and you have to know what that looks like year on year. So you have to have a destination. So if it's 15 years, you're asking me about 15 years. It's okay, that's a little 10 years. Yeah, getting clear. 5 years, really, really clear. So 5 years from now, what does the business, so in 4 years, what does the business need to be doing? What does it need to look like in order to achieve our goal at 4 years? 3 years from now, where do we need to be 3 years from now to get to the 5 year, and so on and so forth. And then that, of course, is translated into key objectives for all of our departmental heads. Yes. And they basically run the business. Their role, of course, is to ensure the strategic integrity of the organization, and as required, there's about 20% ratio around operational. And then they translate that to the management and so on and so forth. So it really is a team. It's a team. So yes, I'm watching on milestones. We have milestones in place that tell us that we're on. It's like I said earlier, it's like a map. So if we know the destination, then we just have checkpoints along the way that say, you know what, we're that much closer.
You follow that route.
Yeah, well, we could change the route, right, but you never change the goalpost. You never move the goalpost, right? You don't change the vision. You don't change the objectives. You might have to change your tactics. You might need to redefine strategical elements, but strategy-wise towards the objective, the key objective, no, that doesn't change. But your tactics sometimes have to change. I mean, that's just how life goes sometimes. Sure. Especially if one area of the business, or if there's a change in the industry, we've got to have that flexibility. We've got to have that adaptability. And, or else we wouldn't have made it to 15 years, and we definitely wouldn't be able to make it moving forward. So that's, I think, pretty much says it all in a nutshell, yeah.
Thank you.
Stay connected to experience the company's future vision.